I have the opportunity to do two quick things before we move right into the keynote. The first is really to extend sincere thanks to all of you from the staff and group and partners of the National Technical Assistance Center. How many of you in the past 12 months have entered and delivered information about the fidelity with which you're using PBIS? You use the TFI, you use the SET, you use the BOQ. All right, about 66%. Part of what I want you to note, I want you to know this, and this is pretty exciting. As of 2 weeks ago, the National Technical Assistance Center for PBIS has been refunded for another 5 years. Now, I know those of you who do grants and you get grants from the state and whatnot, all of that's great. Yes, we always celebrate and are excited. It is extraordinarily uncommon for the U.S. federal government to fund something this long. I want you to think back to some of the things that Lucille was saying. I mean, we started in, the first PBIS center was in 1997. I'm not going to ask people to raise their hand if they were there. I think actually only George Sugai and Lucille were there. But part of what I want you to think about, this is really an accomplishment, and it is true and possible only because you deliver the data. You deliver the information that says two things. One, you're implementing PBIS well, and two, you're really affecting the outcomes for kids. I want you to think about this. Right now, what you are doing in your states, in your districts, in your regions, is having an effect on over 26,000 schools. That's close to 28% of all the schools in the United States. And it represents improving the educational environments in over 14 million students. Nice job. All right, now going forward, the new Technical Assistance Center is actually going to be led by 4 key co-directors. Kent McIntosh out of the University of Oregon, Brandy Simonson out of the University of Connecticut, Tim Lewis out of the University of Missouri, and our very own Heather George from the University of South Florida. All right, and it seemed only appropriate and auspicious, especially given that the grant has just been funded and Heather has all this money, that we ask her to come and be the keynote launch presenter today. But this is really a great opportunity. I mean, I want to introduce Heather as a research professor at the Department of Child and Family Studies, University of South Florida, but also as somebody who has been integrated throughout the efforts to promote positive behavior support in PBIS. She has not only been on the board of APBS and worked closely with Don Kincaid and others, but she's actually been the president. Actually, she got to get a new outfit, new shoes when she was president of APBS. All right? She also has been a very active partner and one of the lead people shaping the development of what you are going to be hearing over the next day and a half. Heather has been part of not just doing PBIS, but developing and implementing and shaping the content of PBIS. She operates primarily out of Florida, and one of the great quotes, I was in southern Florida and I was talking with some people and we were talking about the work that they were doing, and this one person didn't think I was adequately appreciating Heather, and she stopped and she said, listen, she does PBIS with grace, intelligence, and dedication. And I thought, wow, we need more of that, right? But Heather doesn't work just out of Florida. She also is the technical assistance provider in many parts of the country. You get these little Heather, you'll actually see these pictures on road signs as you go through these different states. And one of the things I like best, Heather also works really closely in Texas, all right? And a theme, listen, come on now, a theme that I want you to take away through this whole conference is we want to implement PBIS with intense rigor around the core features, the things that really make a difference, but with real flexibility and understanding and adaptation to culture and context around the path to get there. And I think one of the best indicators of this is the work that Heather's done in Texas. And many of you know that if you're working within PBIS, one of the key things we want is we want you to actually, on a regular basis, measure, are you implementing PBIS? Well, one of Heather's great accomplishments is she's one of the co-authors of the Benchmarks of Quality, which has been used at a great extent. Many of you have used the Benchmarks of Quality. And in most parts of the country, that is known as the BOQ. But in Texas, if you want to talk about measuring PBIS, they talk about the BOQ, right? So I thought, I had this image of the Benchmarks of Quality with large horns, you know, something like going on. So part of what I really want to offer, Heather George is here and presenting, partly because she is one of the 4 key new leaders of moving forward. She's actually shaped the content of what you're hearing, not just this morning, but throughout the next day and a half. She's been intensely involved and interested, especially in those kids who need more significant support. She's also really focused on how we take PBIS and make it not just a bunch of posters in the hallway, but actually real change in how classrooms are operated. She's changed not just what we do in individual schools, but the extent to which we actually understand the role of districts, regions, and states in the process of implementing real change. She's been one of the people who has really transformed PBIS from a neat idea to something that is practical and has real impact for kids. And I'd like you to join me now in welcoming Heather George in her presentation on building district capacity.